Hi and welcome to the All Things ITSM Global Podcast, coming to you from BMC Engage in Las Vegas. I'm Kirsty McGowan, I'm here with Charlie Betts.
Hi, Kirsty.
Carlos Casanova.
Hello, Kirsty.
And now we're going to speak with Dave Johnson from Forrester Research.
Yeah.
Nice to have you here.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, welcome, Dave. It's been, we're getting sort of the latter stages of the conference. There's been a tremendous amount of energy that we've experienced. And it seems like BMC is really pushing the envelope on certain areas. We've had some guests on that are just great stories. From your position, your seat, you do these all the time. All the vendors and stuff. What are you seeing in this conference that from the digital experience, the ITSM evolution or revolution? What are you seeing that they're presenting and their clients are saying that kind of catches your eye, catches your ear this time around?
For me, it's what I see BMC doing right now is playing to their strengths. They're good at things and have been good at some things for a long time, and they're drawing on those, they're building those out, and they're not always going to be the hottest trends. It's not always going to be cloud, right? It's not always going to be big data. There are people that have a hard job to do inside of IT organizations.
Right.
BMC serves them. But when I think about enablement, right, I think about the digital workspace and so on, and some of the things that they're doing there for employee self-service. I'm happy because it's something that helps people get what they need to faster. And this is an area that BMC's had a long track record as well, and builds nicely on top of things that customers already have. Right?
Oh, that's great.
There you go. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
A too long answer to a short question.
I think a lot of the focus we've seen has been on that user experience at the end of the chain, which has been quite refreshing to see, really.
Yeah.
That there's such a focus on that.
Yeah, really important, actually. It's something that's often underplayed or under-focused on in IT organizations. It's okay to have an ugly form sometimes.
Yeah.
But the perception of a company and their software when you have ugly software is that you're not staying with things, that you're not current, that this is old. And so BMC's realizes that and is invested heavily in making the software look good and building new things, right, as they need to. Right? So.
Yeah, that user experience has been a concept has been an ongoing theme, throughout here. It really is about that moment of truth that the user has when they encounter some software that is this software going to be useful or helpful to me? Is it going to add value to me in my current particular predicament or my current need? I think that there's a lot more to meeting that need effectively. In fact, I was intrigued as we were talking about, is employee enablement?
Workforce enablement.
Workforce enablement is your new, one of your research focuses now at Forrester. And you'd mentioned that it even includes neuroscience. And
Very much.
I thought, really, as we talk about user experience, there's a lot of complexity to how it is that people interact with this digital tech. It's not something that you just, let's just. I think the old model was, we have a paper form here, and now I can put it on a computer, and that's good enough.
Not quite.
Not quite the same.
Yeah.
The psychology of it is creating an environment, right, and in which people want to do their best work, right? Something that doesn't demotivate them, but helps them want to do their best work. And there's a bunch of, there's 40 years worth of organizational psychology and more recently neuroscience around this that just is not widely known, by IT folks. And so we're trying to help set that balance. Compliance is extremely important, security is extremely important, but what's more important is people's willingness and ability to get things done. Yeah. So if you don't have that in order, then that's it.
You need to have that understanding of how people actually think, how they work.
Yeah, and I think that understanding.
What encourages them.
Yeah, and that understanding of why am I doing this? You mentioned the security thing. When you're talking about the different forms, I think of visual learners versus those that aren't. It's a different dynamic, but understanding. Why am I doing this? Yes. From a security perspective, if everyone understands, and that's one thing that I've been talking to clients a lot about, is security is in every aspect of operations of what we do today. It has to be, because that's just the nature and the risk levels that we're at these days. So if I understand that what I'm doing, and if I'm circumventing a process or procedure, that might lend to some vulnerabilities. Maybe I won't do it as much. So that workflow, like you said, making it easier for folks, and essentially not driving them down to a path that might, increase risks and stuff.
Key point on that. You're right. Very good insight. It is quite often the understanding the implications of a decision you're going to make with security or policy matters a great deal, because for me, and I work with security analysts who may, be a little upset if I say this, but
We'll edit it out, don't worry.
it is so important, but so are brakes on the car. You can't have a car without brakes, or a car that doesn't work doesn't have brakes that work. Security is the same way, but I don't want the brakes to come on when I'm driving down the highway at 55, right?
Yeah.
Unexpectedly.
Or holding you back the whole time.
And work, knowledge work, any kind of work is very much a flow process. And if security interferes and gets in the way, people aren't getting things done, and we don't know. We can't always see that. It's not always visible.
Right, and I talk about in sort of three dynamics now. We have our traditional security, which is the walls, try and keep everything up, but we have to accept now that we're not. It's not if, it's when. You will be breached. So, what's your resilience? How quickly can you adapt to what happened and put it out? Put that fire out and stuff. And then the vigilance from a proactive perspective. How do you get ahead of this?
Yeah.
You're going to be breached. Can you figure out how you're going to get breached and go after that? And that sort of three-headed monster, from an organizational perspective, tied into your change, incident, and all of your other day-to-day processes, I think is how we start combating this zero-day threats that we have every day.
There's a big difference in the way different companies respond to crises, right?
Yeah.
And let's take another example that's not IT related. It was Toyota, a huge recall of unintended acceleration, things like that. Toyota's culture is one where they spend a lot of time working with people to help them manage their reactions, right, to things, and help them understand how to respond appropriately in different situations. Really important to do that. So part of your security strategy has to be teaching people and working with them to teach them how to respond. But also, if people are in a place where they don't have a lot of reserve energy left, they're burning out, right? They're under fire all the time, they're burning out. They're less likely to react in a good way that you want them to, right? So you don't want that condition. So
Yeah. I mean, do you want a security engineer, with their fingers on the keyboard when they got people yelling at them, and they're the ones who are actually, trying to respond to this threat in real time?
And they may make a public statement that you don't want them to make if they're in a bad place, right? So,
No, it is. I really appreciate your mention of Toyota, because I've always struggled a little bit just, when people say culture, it's like, well, what do we really mean by that? And I began to understand it by, there's a guy named Mike Rother who wrote a book, Toyota Kata, which I thought was just a great step-by-step discussion of what it means to actually inculcate or develop a culture, a cultural understanding of how it is we do things. Not a process, not a process. We've had.
It could be a process.
Process has been an ongoing thing here.
Close to Canada and Minnesota, I understand.
But it's not a process, but it really, it's just a set of shared expectations about how you react, and I still have a lot to learn about that.
His book, Toyota Kata, was actually one of the main bases for our research in continuous improvement for workforce enablement, because his insight is so good, right? He's spent a great deal of time studying companies like this and learning things like what other companies do, and trying to do what other companies do is not going to help you. You have to understand why, right? And you have to have the culture that will help people understand, what the right behavior is in a given circumstance. And that's what Kata is. It's behaviors.
Excellent.
It's behaviors.
It's funny you mentioned these. I'm thinking back to a slide that I've used. It's something, a disaster is basically how you react to a breach, or how you react to an incident. So the disaster doesn't happen. It's your reaction to something that happened that creates a disaster. If you can remedy it quick, if you're resilient and you're like, hey, yes, something happened, but we can put it out, we can contain it. It might not be a disaster.
That's right.
I was watching a special, I guess this year in Australia, Kirsty's from New Zealand, but they were talking about the wildfires there, and they were showing how they're quick and they're there, but they left one ember, and within like 3 hours, it was 40 acres.
That's right.
So how do you do that? How do you get those embers all out so that it doesn't, catch and go crazy again?
And you have to get every last little spark.
You do, and it requires a level of leadership too, right? Look, I interviewed some people in the Navy SEALs, right? U.S. Navy SEALs for this. And if you watch the way the SEALs work with people, a SEAL leader, a team leader is always watching the people, and their job is to watch what their capabilities are, to learn and understand, their responses, what they can do, what they can't, and make sure they're putting them into situations in which they can succeed, right? And this is the way that they think, right? It's how they do it, and that's how they get such great performance out of people is knowing how to develop them and investing a lot of time and money in developing them as people, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Dave, thanks a lot for your
Yeah,
time today. It's
sure.
been a pleasure chatting. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do it again sometime.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.